On today's Minute of the Apes, Culp's clippity-clop is more like clippity-clump.
Exercise with an ape maker, human down. Then talks. Is of the divine bound. We are determined to know what the apes want. War or peace? And if it is man's destiny one day to be dominated, then, oh, please, God, let him be dominated by such as you.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, a daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies 1 minute at a time. I'm Todd, that was Richard, and Sean, I assume, is on his couch waiting to say hello. Yes. Yes, he is. Here we are, another week, ready to go, 5 more minutes ahead of us. Does anybody have anything they want to say to start the week, or should we jump right in?
This is definitely a heavy-weighted Monday and a heavy-weighted Friday. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week are a little boring.
You know, at least though, even when it's boring, I have to say this is one of these, the entire sequences where Thompson is shooting very beautifully. There are a number of gorgeous shots in this series of moments.
I'll give you that.
So we've at least got that.
You'll allow it?
So, Sean, tell us what's going on. Tell us what's going on with Minute 51.
All right, we're going to start Minute 51 with McDonald saying, "No, Caesar, there are some," and ends with the sound of approaching footsteps.
Let's take a listen to Minute 51 of Conquest of the Planet of the Apes.
No, Caesar. There are some.
Oh, a handful, perhaps, but not most of them. Oh, they won't learn to be kind until we force them to. We can't do that until we are free.
How do you propose to gain this freedom?
By the only means left to us. Revolution.
But it's doomed to failure.
Perhaps. This time.
And the next.
Maybe.
But you'll keep trying.
You, above everyone else, should understand. We cannot be free until we have power. How else can we achieve it?
Go.
As of Minute 51, we have a courtyard's worth of gorillas, chimpanzees, orangutans, an imported ape, Caesar, and a planet's worth of humans, minus one Armando still.
Right away, as this week begins, you know, one of the things that does hit me is how prescient this almost becomes to the struggle of what's going on today with Black Lives Matter, with the back and forth and the implications of Caesar's acknowledgement of the African-American nature of his scene counterpart. Did anybody else feel that right away?
Well, I could see that, yeah.
I totally saw it. I don't know if I'm going to get a breakdown of the actual dialogue itself, but just in terms of the argument, I feel like Dane's back and forth between Caesar and McDonald is a little weak. Like, this could have been an Oscar moment, if you will, of a breakdown of society and politics and culture. But instead, it's just it's very simple. I mean, I feel like it allows the audience to draw these conclusions based upon what they're happening in their life, rather than bringing the argument kind of forward and make it more powerful. It was like you had to interpret this how it affected you versus them telling you.
I agree with that. I think that, you know, there are things that if McDonald follows up to what Caesar has said, that does dive deeper. It becomes a more interesting conversation. But still, for the fourth film in a series of films about talking apes, they're introducing ideas, though, that probably some other films were a little hard pressed to say, hey, let's talk about this and let's even consider the nature of which, you're a black man and I'm an ape, you should be sympathetic to me for those very reasons.
I mean, I suppose the prior movies, it was one of those things where we interpreted a lot of what they were doing, and it was very intentional. But they didn't necessarily try to give the arguments to the audiences. They just let the story itself play out, and you interpret it the way you want. So I guess this is in keeping with the prior films. I know it's a short span, but I mean, McDonald gave us nothing, and the next. McDonald gave him nothing. McDonald's a brick wall for this entire conversation.
He is, but he's also been this weird stoic brick wall every time when he should be standing up to the governor. When he should be the angry counterpoint to what that person says, he just sort of lays in the back and says nothing.
Yeah, I did put, McDonald's just the best sounding board in the world, right? Hey, we want to revolt. It's doomed to failure. Well, thanks, Debbie Downer.
Yeah, I was reading through before you guys came on kind of some of his notes that I found about the early versions of the story, and the fact that he got to this point was, I think, brave for its time, because the original things, from what I could tell, didn't necessarily have these notes in it. But still, it's just like, why isn't McDonald emboldened as a black man to see that struggle and tell him, something along the lines of, my people wanted to do the same thing, and we couldn't fight we couldn't or didn't fight our oppressors, whatever his stance would be. But you're right, Richard. It is almost that it's just sort of, it's not even implied. It's kind of just passively there.
Right. McDonald doesn't really add anything to the argument. All of the discussion comes from Caesar. Caesar's the one's making all the points in this. And I have to say that the juxtaposition of kind and force them, Dane puts in here, the logic doesn't follow for me. I mean, again, it's too blunt. It's not. Caesar ends up saying the belief that humans are kind is a fallacy. He goes, a handful perhaps, but most of them won't be kind until we force them to. And this sounds like it could just easily be the oppressors that feel like they can make everything good for everybody. We're watching the She-Ra show right now, and that's the whole thing, this message of this overlord that wants to bring peace to the galaxy by forcing them to be peaceful and under his rule. And so Caesar's logic is just that of the oppressor. It doesn't move anything forward. It's just a weak argument. It makes Caesar sound like a villain more than it makes him sound like somebody to be sympathetic for. How about that?
Yeah, and when you want that conversation, I think you can even have two characters of the same mind about what the desired end result is, but not seeing the same path to go about it.
You're Professor X / Magneto.
Yeah.
Right.
And it should have been a bit of that. It should have had something. And as I say, these minutes are well shot. It's boring. It's two people talking and nothing coming of it. And also no tension of the impending, stormtrooper type people coming at them.
That was my very first note. Now, I know they want to show the guards on the march, but they need to increase attention by cutting back and forth between Caesar and them, with Caesar and McDonald's audio over them marching and stuff like that, back and forth, so that they're coming, instead of a shot at the beginning, them coming all the way around a corner, and then a shot at the end of them coming all the way around a corner again.
And if you notice this, both this minute and the next minute, I'm pretty sure they had the ADR, some of the footsteps, and they're just off and awkward. And sometimes there's three people walking, but you only hear two footsteps. The the use of the footsteps wasn't dramatic enough. Not even just the shots themselves, but the feet were just kind of awkwardly stumbling down the hallways and coming down steps, both this and the next minute. It was just like they didn't match up. I couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. It was weird. Like Culp was the only one that seemed to have footsteps, and the guards did not have footsteps, and it was just odd.
This goes back to that that scene with Armando and Caesar in the stairway, where we should have seen and heard military police marching around, doing whatever to heighten the tension. With this, they should have been tucked away somewhere where maybe they're looking at a door as somebody walks by or things like that. Or maybe when Caesar is talking about what he feels, maybe he's seeing an ape being abused off in the distance or something. There should have been elements of visual aid to this. And that's what really bothers me even more than the footsteps, is there's no other visual element to it at all. It is just two people talking.
Yeah.
And that's it.
But I have to say, to take this back to Babylon 5, like I always have to, I can see where Straczynski got a little inspiration for Jakar, because Jakar gives a speech at one point whenever the Narns are under attack by the Centauri, and they've been basically taken prisoner, or their whole race has been taken prisoner. And Jakar gives a speech, and he says, "No dictator, no invader can hold an imprisoned population by force of arm forever. There is no greater power in the universe than the need for freedom. Against that power, governments and tyrants and armies cannot stand. The Centauri learned this lesson once. We would teach it to them again. Though it take 1,000 years, we will be free."
All right. Well, can Caesar say that or something along those lines? That might be a little more poetic than,
What is his speech?
We'll do it again and again.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again and again. And then there's this, that we kind of end some dialogue with Caesar saying, "You above everybody else should understand. We cannot be free until we have power, Mr. Miguel. How else can we achieve it?" And it's this weird, like, I guess Caesar went to history class and learned all about modern civilization. It was this weird, like, Caesar.
Armando gave him a good education out on the circus ranch.
It kind of came, somebody who seemed to be so naive is now able to, and so innocent when he first started the movie, has now become, again, kind of, I understand why he's bitter, I understand why he's angry, but just to say, you of all people should understand. Okay, so I don't know. It just,
at first, I was gonna have exception to what you're saying, because I thought, well, he could be in that circus and Armando could give him books. However, when you put that together, that he was treated relatively naively about how he needed to behave amongst apes, surely, I guess Armando left that part of the story out when he was teaching him while they were in the circus. And so that you're right. I mean, for him to suddenly be very aware. However, I do think that line is very interesting for a film of this time, that you above everyone else must understand, because this film is coming out. The civil rights movement has been in act, and they're still struggling beneath it. So for a film like this to say that kind of thing is pretty brave. For that time, you can't deny that, to call out and say you were enslaved, I'm enslaved.
There's I'm just going to blame all 70s television for this. When I go back and rewatch things like Battlestar Galactica and Knight Rider and all these little random shows, the simplicity of the dialogue sometimes, where the audience will just go, yeah, to something that really doesn't logically make sense. And I feel like that's kind of where this argument is. It's just this era of writing style where you of all people should understand is something the audience is going to get really excited about, even if it's not really kind of the argument is laid out for them. I don't know.
Well, it's not a deep argument. I'm just saying that one statement is just brave for its time. I do not disagree with you. The minute is lacking. There's no tension. There's very little said. And then, by McDonald coming to send him off on his own, even there's no tension towards that. It's just sort of like, see ya.
I think also aren't unescorted apes big no-no? So why is he sending him off on his own?
Yeah. I'm sorry, you're going to go get him shot.
Well,